From the very first chapter of Harry Potter, we are told this is a story about survival. A baby lives when everyone expects him to die, and gets a pretty sick lightning bolt scar in the process. A boy grows up to defeat the darkest wizard in history. A child becomes a symbol of hope. But there's a quieter question buried underneath that story, one the books never ask directly. What if Harry wasn't raised to survive at all? What if the most powerful wizard in the world knew from the very beginning that Harry's life would have to end, and built everything around that fact? Because when you look closely, something doesn't add up. Harry is protected, but never comforted, guided, but never fully informed, praised for bravery, but only when that bravery involves risking his life, taught about the birds, but never taught about the bees. And the man overseeing it all, calm, smiling, endlessly reassuring, always seems to know just enough to stay one step ahead. By the time Harry Potter walks into the Forbidden Forest, the choice looks heroic. But the real question is, was it really ever a choice at all? Before Harry Potter ever stepped into Hogwarts, before he held a wand, before he even knew what magic was, the most important decision of his life had already been made for him. No, not whether to have him circumcised. The rumor is his wizard sleeve is still intact. It happened on a quiet street called Privet Drive. On that night, Albus Dumbledore does not behave like a grieving protector. He does not debate options. He does not hesitate. He delivers Harry to the Dursleys with clinical certainty, fully aware of what kind of home this is going to be. He frames it as protection, but what he actually creates is containment.
He's far better off growing up away from all of that. Until he is ready.
This matters, because from the very beginning, Harry is not raised like a child who is meant to live a normal life. Unless your idea of living a normal life is sleeping in a spider-infested closet. Instead, he is raised like someone who needs to survive just long enough. Dumbledore knows several things on that night. He knows that Voldemort is not truly gone. He knows that Harry survived something unprecedented. And crucially, he knows that Harry's survival is not an ending. It is a condition. Whatever Harry is now, it ties him permanently to Voldemort's unfinished existence. That makes Harry dangerous. Not to others, but to the future, and the others who inhabit that future. Privet Drive is chosen because it is restrictive. It suppresses magic. It isolates Harry from the wizarding world. And more importantly, it removes any sense of entitlement, confidence, or expectation of safety. After all, we wouldn't want the kid to accidentally enjoy his childhood, right? This is not an accident. It is a psychological environment. Harry grows up unloved, unseen, and constantly reminded that he is a burden. He learns not to ask questions. He learns to endure greatly. He learns that survival is earned through compliance. He dreams of life across the pond, where children like him have access to firearms. These are not heroic traits. They are sacrificial ones. And Dumbledore knows exactly what is happening. He couldn't give two figs, but he is aware of it.
I don't know.
We are told, repeatedly, that Dumbledore is aware of Harry's treatment. Letters arrive. Reports come in. The school knows. The Order knows. Yet nothing changes until the protection itself is threatened. When Vernon bars Harry from returning to Hogwarts, Dumbledore intervenes instantly. When Harry is starved, isolated, and humiliated, Dumbledore does nothing. That distinction is everything. Dumbledore does not intervene when Harry is suffering. Why would he? The kid is no more than a tool to the old wizard, and tools still work fine when they're a little beat up and rusty. He intervenes when Harry's usefulness is at risk. By the time Harry arrives at Hogwarts, the pattern is already established. Dumbledore keeps him close, but never informed. He appears at key emotional moments. After danger, after trauma, after Harry has proven himself willing to risk his life, and reinforces the same message every time. You did the right thing, putting your physical and mental well-being in danger. The Philosopher's Stone protections are the first real test. Dumbledore designs an obstacle course that no adult would rationally allow a child to face. And yet, Harry is allowed, almost encouraged, to walk into it. Not because Dumbledore miscalculates, but because Harry succeeding under mortal pressure is the point. That, and Dumbledore really just wanted to see a bunch of innocent kids play life-size chess with pieces that were actually trying to kill them. This is how the conditioning works. Harry is placed in danger. Harry survives through moral courage, and more often than not, a heaping spoonful of dumb luck. Harry is praised for, Harry internalizes the lesson, rinse and repeat. Dumbledore's distance is often mistaken for trust. But trust involves agency. Harry is never given that. He is given responsibility without context, bravery without consent, beans without toast. The most telling detail is what Dumbledore withholds. The prophecy, the truth about Voldemort's survival, and the possibility that Harry's life may end violently. Not because Harry is too young to know, but because Harry might choose differently if he did. This is the core of Dumbledore's Phase 1. Harry's childhood is not neglected, it is engineered. A child raised in comfort might question destiny. A child raised in love might demand alternatives. A child raised in a normal-sized, spider-free bedroom might expect such cushy sleeping arrangements everywhere he goes. And a child raised in safety might refuse to die. Harry Potter is raised without those luxuries. By the end of his first year at Hogwarts, Harry had already crossed a line most adults never do. He has walked toward death willingly, and been praised for it. From that moment on, the outcome is no longer uncertain. The only question left is timing, and Dumbledore knows it. Phase 1 does not prove that Dumbledore wants Harry to die. It proves something colder, that he built a world where Harry would be willing to. By the time Harry reaches his second year at Hogwarts, the question is no longer whether danger will follow him. The question is why it is never stopped. And the answer is because Dumbledore is a stinky jerk. From this point onward, Dumbledore's role changes. He is no longer simply placing Harry in danger. He is observing how Harry responds to it, like a scientist observing a rat in a maze. And each year, the answer is the same. Harry goes right for the cheese. Puts himself right in harm's way. The Chamber of Secrets is the first major escalation. A basilisk is roaming the school. Not St. Peter's basilisk, of course, because that's in St. Peter's Basilica.
Hey, I'm gonna eat y'all. I'm gonna eat that hairy leg.
Students are being petrified, and those who aren't are petrified of being petrified. A child has already died once under similar circumstances. And yet, Hogwarts is not evacuated. Aurors are not summoned. The school remains open until the danger becomes impossible to ignore. Most importantly, Harry is not removed from the situation. Dumbledore suspects the truth far earlier than he admits. He understands Horcruxes long before he names them. He knows Tom Riddle left something behind. And when Harry descends into the chamber, Dumbledore allows it, knowing full well that Harry may not come back. Imagine Dumbledore's guilt if Harry just died in there. Just kidding. Knowing Dumbledore, he probably would have started grooming Neville Longbottom for a kamikaze run at Voldemort before Harry's body was even cold. Harry survives again because his willingness to act under mortal threat outweighs his fear. That trait is now proven twice. By the time we reach the Triwizard Tournament, the design becomes harder to excuse. Harry's name emerges from the Goblet of Fire. Dumbledore immediately knows this is dark magic, but he yells at Harry anyway because, as already stated, he's kind of a jerk. He knows someone wants Harry dead. He knows the tournament has killed competitors in the past. And still, Harry is forced to compete. The justification given is legalistic. Magical contracts, binding enchantments, rules that cannot be broken. But this explanation only works if you accept that rules matter more than a 14-year-old's life. Dumbledore does. What matters here is not the tournament itself, but what it reveals about Dumbledore's priorities. At every stage, safeguards are discussed. Dragons are controlled. Merpeople are monitored. Judges are present. But none of these are designed to stop Harry from dying, only to ensure that if he survives, it happens within acceptable margins. Then comes the graveyard. This is the moment where any remaining ambiguity should vanish. Harry is kidnapped, restrained, and forced to watch Voldemort return to full power. Dumbledore did not plan this exact sequence of events, but he did plan for Harry to be close enough to Voldemort for it to happen. The death of Cedric Diggory was no doubt just an added bonus for the sadistic headmaster. After Cedric's death, something shifts. Not in Dumbledore's behavior, but in his silence. Harry is traumatized. He's isolated. He is lied to. The truth about the prophecy is withheld for an entire year, even as Harry is psychologically unraveling.
Look at me! What's happening to me?
And the reason given later is revealing. Dumbledore says he wanted to protect Harry from pain, but that is not what protection looks like. If Harry had known the prophecy earlier, he might have asked questions. He might have demanded explanations. He might have realized that the path he was walking led somewhere irreversible. He might have said, "Hell no!" Get another human sacrifice for your fight against Wizard Darth Vader. Ignorance keeps him moving. This is where occlumency enters the picture. Harry is ordered to close his mind against Voldemort, not because it will make him safer, but because it preserves the integrity of the plan, and stops Voldemort from seeing any of Harry's perverted, puberty-fueled fantasies. The connection between them is dangerous, yes, but it is also useful. It provides information. It creates proximity. It ensures inevitability. And crucially, Harry is never told why this training matters. He is trained like a soldier who is not allowed to see the map. Every year, Dumbledore does the same thing. He reveals just enough to push Harry forward, but never enough to let him choose a different direction. The pensieve lessons in Harry's 6th year are a perfect example. Dumbledore shows Harry memory after memory of Tom Riddle's past, building empathy, understanding, and moral clarity, but avoids the single truth that would change everything, that Voldemort has a third nipple, and that Harry is not just hunting Horcruxes, but he actually is one. Dumbledore knows this by now. He has known for some time. And still, Harry is allowed to dream of a future beyond the war. He's allowed to plan. He's allowed to hope. Hope is not kindness here. It is fuel for his own slaughter. Because a boy who believes he will live will walk further than one who knows he is meant to die. That's just basic science. This is the central mechanism of Phase 2. Dumbledore does not train Harry to survive. He trains him to advance. Danger is never removed, only managed. Information is never shared, only rationed. And each trial Harry survives only brings him closer to certainty. By the end of this phase, the structure is complete. Harry is brave, loyal, conditioned, and, most importantly, unquestioning of the idea that his life might be the final cost. The Dumbledorian candidate, if you will. The plan no longer depends on luck. It depends on Harry being exactly who Dumbledore carved him to be. There is a moment in the series where the mask finally slips. It does not happen in front of Harry, behind Harry, or anywhere in Harry's vicinity. It happens when Snape throws a hissy fit in Dumbledore's office. When Severus Snape confronts Dumbledore, he does not speak like a subordinate. He speaks like someone who has finally understood the full shape of the plan, and is appalled by it. You have been raising him like a pig for slaughter. This isn't an overreaction. It's a pretty valid crash out on Snape's part. Snape is not accusing Dumbledore of cruelty. He's accusing him of design. And Dumbledore's response is telling. Silence. He does not deny it. Instead, he reframes it.
Don't tell me now that you've grown to care for the boy.
Dumbledore explains that Harry must die so that the piece of Voldemort inside him can be destroyed. He speaks calmly, practically, as if describing an unpleasant but necessary ingredient in a potion, like the tears of a puppy or a baby's pinky toe. There is sadness, yes, but no surprise, no hesitation, no reconsideration.
Yes, he must die.
This conversation confirms something that had only been implied until now. Dumbledore knows, with certainty, that Harry is a Horcrux, and that knowledge changes everything that came before. Every withheld truth and avoided conversation. Every instance of Dumbledore accidentally calling him Horcrux Potter instead of Harry. All of it now has context. Yes, Dumbledore is still a big stinky jerk, but now we know why he's a big stinky jerk. Dumbledore did not simply fear breaking Harry's spirit. He feared disrupting the outcome. And yet, here is where the argument becomes uncomfortable, Dumbledore is not lying when he says he hopes Harry will live. But he also knows that when you hope in one hand and poop in the other, the poop hand fills up faster. Hoping Harry lives is not the same thing as planning for him to die. If Dumbledore truly intended Harry's survival, there would have been preparation. There would have been instruction. There would have been clarity. Maybe even a platonic hug or two. Instead, what Harry receives are riddles. I open at the close. This message is poetic, symbolic, and deeply inadequate for what it is meant to convey. It just sucks as a riddle in general. Harry is supposed to understand that he must die willingly at the correct moment, without resistance, and without destroying Voldemort's soul fragment through any other means. That is not a clue. That is an assumption. Harry only realizes the truth because a chain of coincidences breaks perfectly in his favor. Snape is mortally wounded at the right moment. Harry is present. The memories are transferred. Snape reveals his creepy crush on Harry's dead mother. There is time, inexplicably, for reflection before the final confrontation. If any one of these elements had failed, the plan collapses. This is the strongest evidence that Dumbledore did not plan Harry's realization. He relied on inevitability instead. on Harry's tendency to step forward when others step back. And shock, that's exactly what Harry does. When Harry walks into the Forbidden Forest, there is no guidance, no confirmation, no reassurance that this is reversible. He believes he is going to die permanently, and he goes anyway.
I'm ready to die.
He did this all because all of Dumbledore's conditioning worked. That, and, that's the way it was written. Dumbledore never needed to explain the plan fully. He only needed to raise a sucker who would finish it. The King's Cross conversation after Harry's apparent death is often used to absolve Dumbledore. He smiles. He expresses relief. He admits that Voldemort tethered Harry to life unintentionally. And in that moment, he sounds almost proud. But listen carefully to what he actually says. He hoped, suspected, and wondered. None of these are the words of a man who planned for Harry's survival. They are the words of someone who accepted Harry's death as the most likely outcome and is quietly grateful that events bent another way. This distinction matters. Dumbledore did not engineer a resurrection. Voldemort did. By taking Harry's blood, Voldemort anchored Lily's protection inside himself, unknowingly preserving Harry's connection to life. This was by no means Dumbledore's plan. It was a contingency, born of Voldemort's arrogance and J.K. Rowling's rush to finish the story so her publisher would stop calling 20 times a day asking when she would be done. Imagine Albus's sigh of relief. Dumbledore gambled, and happened to be wrong in the best way possible. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth at the center of Phase 3. Dumbledore did not raise Harry believing he would survive. He raised him to sacrifice himself so the world would.
Offer him up as bait? Potter is a boy, not a piece of meat.
That does not make Dumbledore a villain, but it does make him something far more complex. He is a man who believes outcomes justify methods. A man who learned, too late, the cost of loving power. And a man who chose to win, even if the price was a child's life. In other words, a big stinky jerk. By the time Dumbledore dies, the plan is complete. Harry does not know it yet, but the final choice has already been shaped for him. When the moment comes, Harry will walk forward, not because he is commanded to, but because he has been raised to believe that this is what goodness looks like. When Harry walks into the Forbidden Forest for the last time, there is no speech, no guidance, no reassurance that this will work. He does not know he will return. He believes, fully and honestly, that this is the end. And as we know from this video, this belief was no accident. This is the final proof that Dumbledore raised Harry to die, not because he wanted Harry dead, but because he never gave Harry a reason to believe his life would outweigh the victory. Harry's final act is often framed as the ultimate triumph of love over fear. And it is. But it is also the culmination of a lifetime of reinforcement. Harry has been taught, consistently, that love means sacrifice, that goodness means endurance, and that bravery means walking forward when others step aside. He is choosing death because that's what comes naturally to him, fluently. Fluency instilled by Dumbledore. Dumbledore's defense often points to the King's Cross conversation as evidence of his innocence. Dumbledore expresses remorse. He admits fault. He speaks gently. He tells Harry he is free to choose whether to return. But this moment comes after the choice has already been made. Harry does not question whether he should have been told earlier. He does not ask why no alternative was explored. He does not resent the fact that his entire childhood led here. He is, by all metrics, not a particularly bright child. Instead, he listens. He forgives. He moves on. This, more than anything, shows how thoroughly the plan succeeded. Dumbledore's greatest achievement is not defeating Voldemort. It is creating someone who will forgive the architect of his own potential death without hesitation. Or, to put it in the darkest, most depressing terms possible, his claim to fame was grooming a child to smile when a noseless snake man murders him. Dumbledore is a utilitarian. He believes that a single life can be weighed against many, and that choosing the many is moral, even when the one is a child he claims to love. He delays truths not to protect Harry's autonomy, but to preserve Harry's usefulness, to make sure he'll still kill himself when the time comes. And yet, there is tragedy here. Dumbledore is burdened. His greatest fear is repeating his past, choosing power over people, and yet he does exactly that, just in quieter ways. He refuses to touch the Deathly Hallows directly. He avoids domination, but he still orchestrates outcomes. He just lets someone else pay the cost. Harry survives only because Voldemort was, by all metrics, Also not particularly bright. Not because Dumbledore saved him, but because Voldemort had a Saturday morning cartoon villain's understanding of love. Dumbledore saved the wizarding world, but sacrificed a child to do it. And he brainwashed, raised that child so, well, that the child would never call it a sacrifice. That is the final irony. Harry Potter is not the story of a boy who is destined to die and miraculously lived. It is the story of a boy raised to believe his life was expendable, and who chose freely to pay that price thanks to the old man who manipulated him into doing so.